Hello. Well, hello. That's me again. Today is December 29th, and I wish I could start something with the good news, but sadly, and I have to express immediately my condolences to the great people of Brazil, and we don't have with us anymore great one, Edson Arantes de Nascimento, also known to the world as Pelé, who basically left us. He died today at the age of 82 in hospital from cancer, and what can I say? 82. We're all gonna be there at some point of time. But obviously, this is the man who defined the game, starting from 1950 and became basically the undisputed king of the football. And obviously it is the tragedy not only for the people of Brazil but for all fans around the world, all fans of the great and beautiful game. And Pelé was anything but the embodiment of the beautiful game, because his football was out of this world. And so what can I say? It is a tragedy. Remarkably, there is another great tragedy for Russians in cultural sense, because the great Russian composer Eduard Artemyev also died today, and it's difficult to explain his meaning, but probably he wrote one of the most important pieces in the Soviet and Russian music. But at some point of time I may kind of give it a try and start explaining what it all meant. But it's the end of the year. It's the 29th. I wish we had better news, and most people and most organizations, especially news organizations, they love to do this. Let's predict stuff, let's predict what's going to happen in 23. I don't do this because I respect people whom I'm talking to, and I respect myself to sit here and give all kinds of predictions, being Cassandra, and you know this trait of mine. What I do, I always give the framework. I'm not interested in predicting that, oh yeah, that's going to happen 5 days from now. For that, we have stock market and graduates of the economics departments from the Ivy League and other universities, but I don't do that. But I need to kind of give you some answers if you wish. And I want to start with what my friend Andrei Raevsky, he's known to you as the Saker, he posted a few days ago, actually 2 days ago, at his website this excellent piece. And he asked, the piece, he called it the most important question. And Andrei Raevsky puts this most important question as such, which I happen to agree with him. Will we live to see the December of 2023? There is no doubt about that the year of 2022, so the year of the, pinnacle basically of the strategic miscalculation on the part of the United States and combined with, and I'm talking about catastrophic miscalculation, and we only now begin to see those kind of results of it. But let me in this case give the answer to this question, and which Andrei Raevsky asks, but many people also ask around the world, and those people of my wonderful audience who also listen and watch me, is that, you know what, you can find sort of the answer probably a couple of years ago, if you will remember, then Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mr. Milley, and who obviously is the butt of the jokes on, from many quarters around the globe. But still, he stated actually a very important thing. You can check it out. It's out there. It's on the internet. Thankfully, a lot of things get documented and maintained. And he stated, when addressing to Russia, said, you know what, we don't have to be enemies. We could be competitors, so, and this was kind of almost pleading for the Cold War 2.0, which is ongoing now, but it's kind of beginning to feel a little bit more on the hot side. But I understand where he was coming from, because the United States thought that it prospered dramatically, during the Cold War, and you know what, let's compete and let's see what happens. Well, guess what? Russians essentially stated that, yeah, sure, let's compete, let's see what happens. But the answer to the issue, if we're going to see the December of 2023, and bar some incredible, what is called black swan event, for example, some neocon going bananas, and obtaining the, I'm just saying, and obtaining the codes for the launch, which is of course highly improbable, or some moron, who thinks that, what, I mean, the only way to deal with Ruskies is to bomb them into oblivion, such as people in Rand, I mean, and I have no respect for Rand in any scientific or especially warfare way, but hey, yeah, they think about that they can de-escalate by attacking Moscow. Yeah, if Russia attacks Ramstein, I mean, those people are just ridiculous, and it is especially sad that there are still some military people who work for this org, which is basically producing the copious amount of the pseudo-academic bullshit, and but it is what it is. But in order to answer this question, let's go to a guy who is way, way above my pay grade, and his name is Sergei Viktorovich Lavrov, who is the Minister of the Foreign Affairs of Russian Federation. And 2 days ago, when Lavrov speaking, as he stated, with some people in the United States and Washington D.C., that's what he stated to Russian RIA News, and actually when he was speaking and giving the interview in the program Big Game on the first channel of Russian TV. It's a huge network, and so, and look what is marked in yellow, and this is what I need to translate it. He stated, we asked Americans through the channels which we still have in our embassy, does it mean that their decision to transfer the battery of the Patriot, considering the very difficulties in using it, if there will be American specialists there? And in generalities, we have been explained that no, there is no plan to send any American personnel, specifically because Americans do not want and would not fight directly against Russia. Just think about it. So basically, United States through their people, and you have to understand that basically when Lavrov says something, obviously he's talking about his level is Mr. Blinken and people of the scale of Sullivan, and even sometimes he can talk, his messages could be conveyed to the President of the United States. That's how important, obviously, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia is. And when he says that, yeah, Americans stated, we're not going to fight you directly, yeah, we knew that, I mean, and the reason they are not going to fight directly first, obviously they understand, some of them at least, I'm not talking about neocon cabal and basically the State Department people who are in charge of it and in charge of the foreign policy, because they are absolutely mindless crooks there who have no clue what they're doing. But they understand that if they want to fight Russia, it's going to end up with DC being flattened, and so the United States ceasing to exist as basically the state, as the nation. And in terms of the conventional fight, in terms of accumulating whatever the forces the United States can put together, it's obviously straight out of the fiction, because obviously the United States cannot and does not have forces required to fight Russia in Europe, especially in Eastern Europe, and hope not to sustain catastrophic losses and defeat as the result of it. So they are pretty, arrogantly straightforward. We're not going to fight you directly. We're going to fight you through the proxies. So, okay, well, at least that tells us something, that we can, for now, in accordance to Mr. Lavrov, and this is implied in what he states, that, yeah, let's kind of put aside this nuclear exchange thingy, albeit there are many people, as I already stated, in DC and in the so-called geopolitical academic, it's pseudo-academic, but community in the United States, be that Rand or anything, who still think that they can fight some kind of limited nuclear war against Russia. And I don't know how to explain this to them, but point is, Mr. Lavrov here speaks pretty solid words, so to speak, that, yeah, United States doesn't want to fight Russia directly. Well, we knew this all along. I've been on that since 2014. I wrote 3 books on that, that United States doesn't have forces or force structure for that matter to fight that. And fact is, I don't think so it will have it in anytime soon. Granted that United States still will consume Europe and will get some kind of extension or lease on life through basically destroying economically Europe, which is happening right now. But again, you know what? I am on the record. I wrote about it. As much as this sounds cynical, almost inhumane when you speak about this, I would say if I would have been American statesman today, guess what I would be doing? Absolutely, I would be crushing Europe, and I would be trying to basically create this onshore of the European technologies and European industry. Granted, it's not going to work as they planned anyway, but it's pretty much self-evident. So hell with the Europeans, Americans need to eat too, And obviously, if we kind of get this in the proper perspective, especially considering the fact that the globalist idea, the globalist elites are tied to the United States primarily and partially to London, it seems like pretty reasonable. In the end, London, UK, leaving the European Union, at least trying to in 2016, it was the kind of decision-making point of the existential nature, if we think about it, that United Kingdom decided to tie together its fate to the United States, obviously not to Europe. And that was actually the first sign of what was going on in terms of the basically at that time already existing or prolonging, or if you wish, unfolding the pretty hot war in Ukraine. Everybody knew that at some point of time it's going to explode, and it did on the February 24th this year. So, and when you think about it, yeah, it kind of seems almost reasonable, and but I wanted to also point out to you the very important thing, which is, and when I say miscalculated, which kind of supports my point for many years now. As news have it today, Mr. Stephen Walt of the Israel lobby fame, it was the book, very important book, make no mistake, which was written by Stephen Walt and John Mearsheimer, Israel lobby, which was basically describing the Israel, or Jewish if you wish, but primarily Israel, because there are many non-Jewish people who are part of it, about the subversive activities and how basically the demolishing of the proper American foreign policy. He co-wrote this book with John Mearsheimer, and today he gave the interview actually he gave it several days ago, but today it started to be circulated, and I wrote the gist of it, and basically when people say the American realists, I'm beginning to smile, I have a smirk on. I really never encountered, I encountered some true realists, but primarily when you look at this whole realist circle, which by the way, John Mearsheimer is considered to be a realist, and you can look up the definition of the realist on the internet. It's very easily found, and believe me, there are so many realisms now. I lost count. There are, the aggressive realism, defensive, offensive, whatever. Just read about it if you want. I don't see a reason for me to explain this. Basically multiplications of essences. But the point is, when you look at the American realists, most of them are the products. They are the products of the fraudulent academic field, which is very popular in the United States and in the Western world, which is called political science. Again, political science is not science, and it's not legitimate academic field. It's a hodgepodge collection of the facts thrown in together and basically providing the degrees and basically graduate and postgraduate degrees for people who cannot do differential equation and cannot pass any kind of engineering exam. So this is what it is all about. And obviously it's not legitimate science, it's not legitimate study field. And when you have people who still think, and these are realists, and they think in terms of the American-centric world, They do not understand that for all my love to the United States, I live in the United States, I'm a citizen, I love this country, I'm absolutely tormented by what is going on to this country and what is being done to it and to its people, but still, they have to understand it's a newcomer. It's a newcomer which was actually always insulated from the rest of the world by the two oceans, and as such, actually, it cannot even relate yet properly relative to the histories of other people. Again, look at China. If to believe historians, I think so, 5,000 years civilization. Look in Russia, more than 1,000 years. Look at European civilizations. And, so if you look at this, it's like, okay, yeah, so here are the guys who have been born primarily in the 20th century. I was born too. And they just basically catch, or caught, if you wish, the World War II and post-World War II period of prosperity and Bretton Woods system, which United States was the main beneficiary of. And they believe to think this in terms of the American-centric history. In reality is, though, even industrial revolution came to the United States by the way of the Great Britain. And there was those technologies which came to the United States. So in this case, when people begin to think about geopolitics and modern geopolitics as the American-centric, and they call themselves, basically realists, they lack understanding of the balance of power and how it's formed, and it's primarily formed through the military economic might. And then, of course, they don't know the history of the United States, especially pre-war, and especially starting from the Great Depression, when the country actually, in essence, almost disintegrated. But they still think that actually the United States was always the shining city on the hill, and that it was the superpower. Well, United States became superpower, really, after World War II, because it wasn't destroyed as the rest of the basically Eurasian landmass. And so when you have those people talking about that, oh my gosh, like Stephen Walt spoke about it today, that looks like they didn't foresee or didn't plan on the failure of their plans in Ukraine. I'm sorry, but this is what they do. Read my first book, The Loss of the basically military supremacy, because they are myopic. They do not operate. They do not plan for contingencies, because the United States never had to plan for that. It never was under a real threat of war, demolition, and basically, disaster. And so now Mr. Stephen Walt says that they never foresaw anything in Ukraine. Of course they never foresaw anything in Ukraine. Because when you look at basically the whole field of the, which is also includes all those think tanks, and you look at the military, economic, and political analysis in the United States, 99% of it is fraud. As I already stated, General Latif of DARPA, General Latif, PhD in physics, 20 years as the officer in DARPA, he states, everything American public and American political top elites know about war and military technology is from Hollywood. It is from the entertainment. And so is the overwhelming majority, including Mr. Stephen Walt and John Mersheimer. Everything they know about modern war, modern technologies, they know from the Hollywood. They simply do not have the necessary toolkit to understand and properly analyze it. And that is why I say it's all fraudulent. And that is why when you look at those, majority of those, so to speak, realists in the United States, there are very little difference between them and neocons, for example, because they all are basically revolving around the pivotal role of the United States in the human history, which it is now. The United States is a newcomer. In terms of other civilizations and other nations, it is very young. It is still child, basically. And yet we have these people talk about, and then they wonder why the political top in Washington, D.C. didn't figure out that their plans in Ukraine can fail. Well, because they don't know anything. They don't know what Russia is. They don't understand China. And this is a well-documented record of complete failure. They never know what they're doing whenever they go into anything, be it Iraq, Afghanistan, and now they want to get into the competition with the nation which defeated enemies the United States can only dream about. And I'm talking about what is the U.S. Army compared to Wehrmacht and Axis forces of 1941. It's a joke. And yet those people still think that they can do this in Ukraine and nothing comes out of it. Well, let me explain again. And I want to go back to the explanation of this idiocy of, for example, Sweden and Finland trying to get into NATO. They probably will get to NATO. Nobody really cares about NATO, realistically, militarily. But look at this. And when people try to explain why they are so, hell-bent on getting into their, NATO and everything, look at this. They discuss the political elites of, for example, Finland. And when you look at this, here's the explanation. When, for example, you talk about the elites in Sweden or Finland, the current generation of politicians are sticklers for rules and values. In their eyes, Russia is a weak nation, amounting to mere 2% of the world's GDP and could be crushed. It has also disturbed the world order, and it means negotiation with it are off the table. Finland's government obeys this European rule. Turkachov, the basically specialist in Scandinavia, told them. What can I say? It is true. These are people who really think that if you produce many banks and many transactions on the basically stock market, that you have real economy. And yes, that is why they think that Russia is the 2% of the world GDP, and the United States has the GDP of $23 trillion, which is complete baloney. Basically, well, Russian economy is about the third the size of the United States. It is much larger than Germany, and militarily, European Union is a pipsqueak compared to Russia. And here is just the explanation why they are stupid. These are the people who are brainwashed. They don't have any serious education. They don't have any serious academic or life experiences. But let me show you. Remember the economy in tatters, right? Well, Mr. Obama, the community organizer, with law degree from some, whatever, Harvard, he was such a big specialist in military economic field, right? Here it is. Today, Russia floats out two, actually one, Generalissimus Suvorov, the Beret class SSBN, is accepted to the fleet, while the Emperor Alexander III, another advanced ballistic missile submarine Beret, is floated out. So basically, within around 10 years, Russia produced seven state-of-the-art, the most advanced nuclear missile submarines in history. And when you begin to look, and you remember my last time I spoke to you about the table of Russia building submarines, building ships, building now yesterday another batch of those Su-57s flew to Russian Air Force and things like that. And then you begin to look at the engagements of Russians for the upcoming New Year's, where all restaurants, all clubs are packed. You cannot literally book anything. So, well, that's how Russians obviously are being miserable. So you begin to understand that we lived in 2022 through the year of the unbelievable geopolitical transformation. And as those proverbial frogs in the low heat, pots, and I'm one of them. We need to consider that the fact that for many people, especially lay people without specific educational life experiences related to the geopolitics, the water was heating up pretty substantially as of lately, but they still didn't notice, I guess. But no, we are not going back to the way things were before. It's just not happening, because the world is today very different. And going back to Andrei Raevsky's proper question, the most important question, will we see the December of 2023? After what I observed and after what I collected, so to speak, and I'm writing the fourth book, is that if you listen carefully to what Russian officials, from Vladimir Putin to Sergei Lavrov to Mr. Shoigu to Dmitry Medvedev, oh, that's the guy. West better pray that the guy doesn't become president sometime down the road. Russians were very specific and very explicit in stating that we will not allow the world to die in the nuclear catastrophe. And believe me, those people know they are born of generation, which is a generation of Russians which defeated one evil force after another. And you know, if there is some kind of alternative universe where you can communicate with the past, you can talk about this to Hitler, to Napoleon, and other types of people like that. And that is why I wish I can or I could say that we will see the December 2023, but as you already know, the world of the prognostication and of serious analysis is the world of the probabilities. So, is it possible that we will see December 23? Possible. How probable it is? Well, you know what? Obviously, supercomputers deal with those issues and they calculate probabilities. But I would say that we have a good chance that we will see December 2023. But of course, a lot will depend on the circumstances around it. But here, I just wanted to tell you, 2 days before the new year, let's hope and pray for those who believe in God or Allah, what have you, that the year 2023 will be controlled. There are many upheavals are coming, obviously, but at least it will be controlled, that humanity and human civilization, human culture survives. And in this particular case, what can I say to you guys? It's the New Year's Eve, essentially, so my best wishes to you, and I wish you Happy New Year. Everything you wanted for yourself, for your loved ones, let it happen. But most important, let it be peace around the world. And I'm not talking about in the funny way, as Mr. Bill Murray says, in the wonderful Groundhog Day, but we better pray for peace. And so what can I say? This is what I wanted to tell you today. And my friends, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel and support me on Patreon or buy me coffee. And I want to express my profound gratitude to my wonderful supporters and sponsors. And what can I say, guys? Thank you very much. So have a nice new year. Bye-bye.